Let's get started. Tonight we welcome you for an informational meeting on home rule. We have the referendum question on the November ballot. Shall the city of Batavia cease to be a home rule unit? What is home rule? Batavia was automatically given home rule in 2009 when its population hit 25,000. But what does that mean? Tonight we have two special guests with us to help explain. After their presentations, we will take questions. We have for you some index cards and pencils. We ask that you would please write your questions on the index cards so that we may sift through them. We will address all the difficult questions, but just to whittle things down, because our guests have time constraints, we ask that you write your questions on index cards and then raise your hands to the gentleman over there if you would like an index card and a pencil.
You want index cards?
You might want to just pass them out just in case they have some questions. So pass them through. You could pass them up and down the aisle so they could pick up a pencil and an index card. And write down your questions. If you have a question, raise your hand with the index card and somebody will come by and pick it up. So after our guests have made their presentations, we will answer some general questions that you have for them. So then they may be on their way. They both have come quite distances to be here with us tonight, so we do not want to keep them here very late. So then we will go on to address Batavia's specific situation and any questions you might have having to do with Batavia. So first I would like to introduce Mr. Jim Tobin, economist and president of Taxpayers United of America. Taxpayers United has been fighting for the rights of taxpayers for over 40 years. We are very pleased to have him here with us tonight. Welcome, Mr. Tobin.
Sylvia. It's pretty easy to figure out how to vote on this. The taxpayers put the petition on the ballot to limit tax increases, and the politicians are fighting us. They fight us everywhere we go. By politicians, I mean the local politicians at City Hall. So if you want higher taxes, more debt, more wasteful spending, keep home rule. They'll keep it up. They'll start it up if they haven't started it yet. In 1970, Illinois adopted a new constitution. By the way, that constitution was created by people like Michael Madigan and Richie Daley. They were delegates to the 1970 Constitution. And they made sure it was a bad constitution for taxpayers. The 1870 Constitution, set up after a couple of major tax revolts across the country, the 1870 Constitution in Illinois was a much better constitution for taxpayers. The 1970 Constitution, among other things, gave us home rule, which I call home ruin. If a city gets a population of 25,000 people, it gets home rule automatically without a referendum for home rule. If you want to try and get rid of home rule, you can do that. It's really tough to get the signatures and do the whole campaign against City Hall. City Hall constantly raises lobbies for more and more tax increases every year. They're set up to do that. That's the way they operate, just like the school districts. They're full-time tax-raising operations. In some cases, home rule, no, I won't talk about that. The Illinois version of home rule, I say Illinois version, other states have decent home rule laws. Like Colorado has a pretty darn good home rule limitation that has a constitution or a contract that protects taxpayers. Not so in Illinois, thanks to Richie Daley, the Daley Machine, and Michael Madigan and his friends. The Illinois version of home rule strips citizens of control over local politicians' power to tax, to regulate, and incur debt. You lose it as a taxpayer, they get it. They love it because they can use their power to raise our taxes, incur debt without a referendum, and mess with our homes and businesses. The Illinois version denies the right to have a local charter or constitution to protect taxpayers from abuse or incompetence by local office holders and from the hazard of easy access to public funds for developers, lawyers, bankers, and government employees. Illinois bypasses the people of the community. What do you expect? It was Madigan and Daley that put it together. Illinois' version of home rule bypasses the people of the community and puts all the power of local government into the hands of local politicians at City Hall. That's why students of government and political science have described Illinois version of so-called home rule as the most insidious form of government in the United States of America. Without the controls of a local charter or constitution, and with citizens stripped of their right to vote on city issues, so-called home rule in Illinois empowers citizens or empowers the local politicians at City Hall to, first of all, raise taxes without citizen permission. Second, well, if you're a non-home municipality, you have state-imposed limits on your power to tax. These are the limits from Springfield they're so worried about losing. See? Without home rule, there are state limits on the power of non-home municipalities to tax. And if you want to go above those tax rates, you have to have a property tax increase referendum to raise city taxes. You don't have to have that anymore here in this city because it has unlimited home rule taxing power. So home rule gives them the power to raise taxes without citizen permission, without a referendum. It secondly imposes new taxes in the form of fees, licenses, and regulations. Once they get that power to tax you, they also get the power to regulate you. And they do so sooner or later. Third, expedite seizures of private property. Home rule allows them to do that. A non-home municipality cannot easily seize private property. So I'm not sure Mr. Trump would like, actually he might like home rule. So, because he supports that sort of thing. Gives city property to private interests without competitive bidding. Fifth, home rule takes greater control over citizens' lives, livelihoods, property, and liberty. For example, if you're trying to sell your home, you reach an agreement with someone, that someone wants to buy your home, home rule municipalities can step right in there and regulate you out of that sale. They can say, well, you have to have carpets. The carpets that meet are up to city code. They can say this and that with home rule. They can impose additional regulations on top of the regulations we have out of Springfield and DC. So, there's an excellent article about home rule and its abuses in the Tribune, June 10, 2012. It's called Soccer Ball and Chain. It's about the city of Broadview, had a population of 16,000 people. They have home rule taxing powers. Without home rule, they have to go to referendum to issue general obligation bonds. General obligation bonds mean you, as property owners, are obligated, in effect, forced to pay off the bond, principal, and interest. Non-home rule units have to have a referendum to get general obligation bonds issued. Home rule units can issue general obligation bonds without a tax increase referendum. They have unlimited power to tax you, and they can tax almost anything. So, when they got home rule by referendum, Broadview promised no property tax increase. They actually ran ads in the newspaper, and they're reprinted in the Tribune article I just referred to. And they got home rule, and they tripled property taxes. A city of 16,000 people issued $200 million in bonds without a property tax increase referendum for a sports stadium. Who was there when they opened it up? But Michael Madigan. He made the mayor a state senator. He helped him get elected. So the mayor of Broadview is a double dipper. He's a mayor with a mayor's salary and city pension, and he's a state senator with one of those cushy state pensions you've heard about so much. And in fact, as long as I mention pensions here, I have the top pensions. This is one of the handouts. The top pension, well, there are over 19,000 people who have pensions over $100,000 a year. I mean, 19,000 retirees in the 6 state pension funds have annual pensions over $100,000 a year. And that's just the 6 state pension funds. There are hundreds of local funds out of Chicago and the suburbs, police and fire funds, municipal fund for Chicago. They have also thousands of people who are retiring getting over $100,000 a year in a pension. Let's take Leslie Heflitz. He's is in first place here this year. He's a dentist. He's retired. He retired at 55. Leslie has an annual pension of $598,000. Their pensions go up 3% every year, cumulative. So in 24 years, Leslie will be receiving twice as much, over $1 million a year. He will receive, if he lives to be 85, which is typical of someone, if you're at 55, your average life expectancy is 85. If Leslie lives to be 85, he will receive $21 million in pension payout. One guy, $21 million. By the way, he retired at 55, he's 57, he has a full-time job. I understand his office is not far from our office in Loop, so he's doing real well for himself. There's no way they're gonna be able to pay these off. But there's one guy who thinks he can. He's running for governor, and his name is J.B. Pritzker. He wants to raise the income tax immediately after getting reelected for the middle class. Everybody gets an income tax hike, thanks to J.B. Then he wants to get a graduated income tax and raise income taxes again on the middle class. That's two massive income tax increases from J.B. Pritzker. Where's the money going? He's promised he has to pay off these pensions for these pension millionaires. He calls them middle-class retirees, he calls them. Well, they're government multi-millionaire pensioners. That's what they are. And we have a home rule. Oh, yeah. The reason they have so many home rule municipalities is because once they have a population of 25,000, they get it without a referendum. You can easily, for non-home rule units, they can do that too from time to time. Usually the home rule, non-home rule units have a tough time getting home rule appealed by referendum, approved, I should say. Not so in the counties. It's kind of hard to hide a countywide tax increase referendum. In fact, no county has been able to do that. So they've been able to sneak by these home rule referenda locally. Oh, they do it with census too, don't they? Yeah. And then they avoid a referendum for home rule that way too. So it's a little tough, but very few of them pass referendums. This last election cycle, we helped taxpayers defeat home rule in Rockford, Homewood, and Marionette Park. We've helped defeat over 200 home rule referenda over the past 40 years. I have here a little booklet from the State Department, from the state, and they indicate that, referenda for home rule were tried in 1972 and 76. Every countywide referendum was defeated. There's no county in this state that has home rule except one, Crook County. They have it in the 1970 Constitution, again, thanks to Gailey and Madigan. If a county gets a population of 1 million, it gets home rule taxing powers without a tax increase referendum. No, every countywide referendum has been defeated. And I'm not even aware of any county that's tried to put one on the ballot in decades. I wish they'd try it again. We'd go and help beat it down. So when we get a chance, we beat them down almost every time. We have here a flyer we've handed out to everybody. It's called Vote Yes to Repeal Home Rule. Shall the city of Batavia cease to be a home rule unit? If you vote yes, you'll have more freedom again. They'll have to have tax increase referendum to issue bonds to subsidize their friends in business. Home rule grants unlimited taxpayer subsidies, encouraging irresponsible spending. Home rule provides unlimited borrowing ability, and that creates unsustainable debt. You think Broadview's going to ever be able to pay off $200 million in debt? They're going to try, and they raise property taxes over 300% to do that. Repealing home rule restores caps on borrowing and property tax increases. You'll get the property tax caps back for the city property taxes. If you like property tax increases, support home rule. You'll get screwed left and right with property tax increases from City Hall over the years and the decades. Repealing home rule restores caps on borrowing and property tax increases. So if they want to issue general obligation debt, they have to have a property tax increase referendum. Repealing home rule restores our right to vote on tax increases and new taxes. With home rule, they can pass almost anything without a referendum. They can't do that if they don't have home rule. For example, Crook County has a tax on wheels. I think it's a tax on wheels of trucks. They have home rule status. No other county can do that as far as I'm aware. Repealing home rule forces the city to focus on residents instead of corporate welfare for their friends and the business community. I have here the Vote No flyer from Lombard. We helped taxpayers repeal home rule in Lombard in 1981. And we made a couple of books. Actually, it was the taxpayers that drafted this in Lombard. And they pointed out, because of home rule powers, the possibility of new taxes are limited only by the ingenuity of municipal officials. That's according to Jack Siegel, municipal attorney. He made a big bunch of money out of home rule. You see, the Constitution of 1970 gives home rule units, actually states in the 1970 Constitution that their powers should be interpreted liberally. You know what that means? Their powers should be interpreted liberally. When I moved into my suburban home, it's a 3-flat, 30 years ago, I was told I couldn't rent out the apartment downstairs. Oh no, we have a home rule special, you'll have to go before the hearing board and the zoning board, and so I couldn't rent out the apartment downstairs. They had special home rule regulations they put in the municipal code back in the 1960s, or 1964, actually, if I recall. So I had to go before the zoning board of appeal, hire an attorney. I lost 4, 5, 6 months of rent, and I couldn't rent that apartment in my home until 5 months later, after the zoning board of appeals very graciously granted me rights I'm entitled to as a person who lived in a non-home rule municipality. Here's the quote. Powers and functions of home rule units shall be construed liberally. That's right out of the 1970 Constitution. So if you're trying to sell your home or business, or you're concerned about regulations from the city on your business, when they get home rule, they can add more regulations on your business or your home. So, I also stated, I forgot to conclude something about the income tax increases. The income tax increases that JB wants to impose on us, 2 massive income tax hikes, aren't going to solve this problem. We're leading the country, in out-migration. 4 years in a row. We've lost over 100,000 people in the past 4 years. The primary reason for that are the taxes. Income taxes and property taxes. That's why if they raise the income tax, if JB raises the income tax as he plans to, not once but twice, more people will leave Illinois. There'll be fewer people left to pay the income taxes. So raising the income tax is going to make things worse. He doesn't care, he's a billionaire. But even though he's a billionaire, he tries to cut his property taxes. Have you ever noticed that? It's unbelievable. By not installing toilets on the property he owns next door to his home, because then you can get a big property tax cut for that. So finally, I have our tax survey. I only have a couple of copies if you want it. It's on our website, tax survey of the 99th Illinois General Assembly, and we rate members of the legislature and the governor on their scores. We've been doing this every 2 years, every session since 1983. And we have here more friends than ever in the House. Unbelievable. Just a incredible number, including Jeannie Eisner with a score of 100. Perfect score. That's the first time that's happened. Even Governor Rauner had a score of 92. Usually the governors get scores around 10, 20, like Clinton. What a failure he was as a governor. Let's take a look at, so here are friends. Okay, no friends in the Senate. None of them had scores over 70%. None. Oh, enemies. Fills up the whole page. So many enemies in the House and the Senate. These guys and gals all had scores of 0. And here's the guy who's just getting started, he says in his TV commercial, Kwame Raoul. He has a score of 0 in this most recent session of the Illinois General Assembly. And he's just getting started. So he wants to be Attorney General of Illinois. He's hoping you'll vote for him because he's just getting started. And by the way, this is the first time all of the enemies with scores of 0 were Democrats. All first time ever. There used to be some good Democrats in Springfield, but they're gone. They're all gone. There are none left in General Assembly in Springfield. Okay, well, thank you very much for your kind attention. We're going to be taking questions in a little while now. I do want to...
And I should note Mr. Tobin does not consider himself a Republican. Okay, next we have Mr. John Giles comes to us from Rockford. He was central to the removal of home rule in Rockford in 1983 and successfully fought the city's attempts to regain home rule, most recently this past spring. Welcome, Mr. Giles.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My name is John Giles. I come from the city of Rockford. I'm a veteran of the fight against this flawed Illinois version of home rule. It goes back quite a while. I have, for me, I'm an author and a journalist, and I am devoted to constitutional government, and I am devoted to the concept of you, the citizens, having the maximum reasonable control over your government. So, thank you very much for being here this evening. You are the hope for the future, not just for your community, but for the country. I boil this down to three questions. I'll give you a little bit. Oh, by the way, and you can fight City Hall. Again, we did it in 1982 and 83. We did it again in 2005 when a bunch of elitists tried to cramp. We had to get 10,000 signatures to get it on the ballot. But a bunch of elitists, lawyers, special interests, developers, people who have their fingers in the public till most of the time anyway, well, they managed to run it, or they tried to run it through the city council. But we embarrassed them. We just pointed out, hey, what are you doing? I addressed the city council 3 times. What are you doing? We ordinary citizens have to go out and get petitions in order to get it on the ballot, but you special interests, you can just run it through the city council, it will be on the ballot. Fine, put it on the ballot, but play the game by the same rules we, the ordinary citizens, have to play by. And then again, they came back just a couple of years, last year, 2017, and tried to, they put it through the city council, we couldn't stop them this time. But we defeated them again. And our record in Rockford goes all the way back to the 1970 Constitution, when we voted 52% to 48% against that Constitution, primarily because it eliminates the checks and balances that have always been a cherished part of the American tradition. It puts all the power in the hands of a few politicians, the elitists, the political class. And as Jim just pointed out so well, they've done a very good job of enriching themselves by taking advantage of this form of government. But for me, it comes down to 3 questions that you can ask yourself. You can cut all through all the home rule BS by just asking yourself these 3 questions. Are you qualified to tell your local government how much of your money you want them to take from you and how you want them to spend it? The second question, are you qualified to tell your local government how much control over your property you want them to have? And the third question is, are you qualified to tell your local government how much control over your liberty and livelihood you want them to have? If you are qualified to tell your local government what you want them to do, you don't need home rule. It's the political class and their people and their cabal that goes with them that wants home rule, not the ordinary citizens. And so I'm going to move away from the mic because, can you hear me clearly while I walk away from the mic? Yes. Okay. Please raise your hand if you have trouble hearing. Excuse me, I have to scoot through here. Because the first time we fought home rule in Rockford, we had a knockdown, drag-out fight with every power that exists in the government. And again, as I said, they're hangers-on. Then the second time, it was, and all the media was against us too, as a matter of fact. Oh, thank you. I'll just grab that. Thank you. Okay, now let's see if I'm getting an image up here. I hope I am. And because what I'm going to do is show you how we fought the forces that are against us the third time around. The first time, it was just a knockdown, drag-out fight. And I found myself debating the mayor on a television, the Rockford television station. We went out and spoke almost daily. As a matter of fact, it almost destroyed my little business. I have a publishing company in Rockford. And I would be busy trying to fill my customers' needs, and City Hall would come up with some other cock and bull story, and here comes the television stations into my office, and so I could hardly get my work done. But again, we had a lot of very devoted citizens, people who knew that America thrives when there are checks and balances in place, and when the citizens control the government, not the political class. So what I did, okay, so that was the first time around. Second time around, again, I went down and talked to the city council 3 times, embarrassed them, and they decided to vote against putting it on the ballot without requiring a special interest to do exactly what we ordinary citizens had to do, and that is go out and get petitions signed. So the third time, so it died, we killed it then, but the third time was very, very difficult because they were getting smarter, and it becomes difficult when you're up against all of the media in a community, when you're up against all of the politicians, and you're up against, I'll show you in a few moments, the whole list of people who fight against the ordinary citizens for home rule. But one of the big things that they were saying to us, this was something that I put up there. We used social media this time around because it's very tough to fight when you are on the side that doesn't have deep pockets. And so this time around, we used social media, and we also, I thought, they're very clever. And one of the ways that you destroy an idea that you want to defeat is to personify it in someone and then destroy that person. And with that person's destruction, there goes the idea. Well, I had already been in the crosshair twice, and they were all ready for me this time. And so, fortunately, the Rockford Area Realtors Association, the Illinois Realtors Association opposes home rule because of how much control over your property you lose. And so I was very grateful that they came forward, and I was able then to kind of get out of the crosshair. But at the same time, I knew that we had to fight these people, and we had to do it in some different way this third time around. And so I decided, again, I'm a journalist, I do cartoons, I wrote a humor column called Guile Without Guile, and I decided humor is the best way to defeat these people. Get out there and actually mock their silly ideas, expose them for how silly, how bankrupt they are. And so I went down to the city council. No, let's see, I knew they were coming on strong. So on the 12th, on December the 20th, I started using social media and put this rather lengthy, you don't have to read this. Well, maybe you do have a copy. I think you do in one of those orange papers I gave. But I also added some humor to it, just to mock the idea, because one of their themes was, you can trust your local leaders. You can't trust these people in Springfield. And by the way, I'm getting ready for the 4th campaign. There is a legislator in Springfield who wants, now you rarely will get a community to say, yeah, we want to surrender our power to vote. We'd rather trust the politicians. So that's why it's imposed upon a community when your population reaches 25,000. Madigan, Jim's right, Madigan and Daley were very smart to do it that way. But there's a legislator now who wants to lower that threshold to only 5,000 population. So I was thinking, there's going to be a revolt. And then I thought, I know why they're doing it. Because when you have home rule, your tax caps are removed. They can tax, if I remember correctly, up to 100% of your community's assessed valuation. And some have done it, and boy, are they in trouble.
Without a referendum.
Pardon me?
Without referendum.
Right, without a referendum, you just do it. You don't have to ask these citizens, who do they think they are, telling politicians what to do. But at any rate, they lower it down to the 5,000 threshold, and guess what happens? You know how one of the horrible things that happens in Illinois is unfunded mandates. These legislators want to be nice guys and gals, and so they pass laws, and then they pass the funding along to the local government. And so they're the really good people because they pass these really great laws. What they forget to tell you is they don't pay for it. They make your local community pay for it. And many local communities are suffering. So if that were to pass, if we were to lower the threshold to 5,000, any community immediately becomes home rule when they have a 5,000 population. Boy, watch what's going to happen. Those legislators are going to go nuts, and they're going to pass the bill on to you. That's just their nature. Now, so that was December 20th. And then on December 30th, I decided to go down, you don't have to read this, and talk to the city council itself. And I began addressing what they're trying to do and embarrassing them. But then I thought, and they had a very nice man in Rockford named Dr. Bill Gorski, a wonderful surgeon, retired now, is the leader of Swedish American Hospital, a very powerful, organization in the city of Rockford. But they decided to use him as their chief spokesperson. And I went to one of their meetings, and I heard him say, you know what, home rule is just like a doctor's instrument. It's just like a scalpel, and we use it to perform surgery. And so I thought, well, wait a minute. It is like a doctor's tool, but I decided to show it this way. This is a surgeon with a scalpel. This is a surgeon with home rule, a chainsaw. Because when they have home rule power, they can go through the community like a chainsaw, cutting through not only your home, but your people, you yourself. Another thing that came up was they talked about, well, actually, this is something that I'd used before. Home rule, the Illinois version of home rule, is like a beautiful car that has a steering wheel, no brakes, and a steering wheel that works only once every 4 years. So I thought, well, that's pretty good. Let's bring that back. And this is what one of the things that was going on social media. You know, I'm sorry, I should be actually scrolling down a little bit. Well, there's another one here. This is, home rule is like giving your child a credit card on their way to a candy store. Trying to, once again, to emphasize to the people of Rockford, you vote in home rule, and this is, it's like giving a credit card to a child in a candy store. Another one that I use to illustrate this concept is home rule is like a burglar, in your home, taking your property, taking your money. And again, these images went out all over Rockford. Some of them went to thousands of people. And then in late February, we decided to do a few education seminars on home rule. And so that was, all of this that I'm showing you is how we used social media. Now, we had a popular mayor, but he wasn't as popular as he thought he was. He won his election by, he received 15,000 votes. Coincidentally, when we kept home rule out this time, we had 17,000 votes, or a little over, almost 3,000 votes actually, more than he got when he was elected. And so again, we had to come up with something though, because he was a very popular mayor. And so what I did was create some headlines. They came out with all kinds of promises about what they were going to do. They were going to set term limits. Well, a city ordinance is not in any way a permanent piece of legislation. The next city council can come along and revoke it. So they were making promises that they were going to set term limits. They were going to, actually, I don't know how many promises, but so I just took recall. If they did, they're going to put recall. We're going to be able to recall the local politicians. They promised everything under the sun. And so I decided to have fun with it. City Hall okays a bogus home rule recall. The council passes a tooth fairy law. City Hall orders the sun to rise in the west. The council orders phony home rule limits. And City Hall orders water to flow uphill. That was the way that we made it clear how silly they were in their efforts to get into your pocketbook and control your property. This was something, I'm an author, and my wife, the first home rule campaign was devastating for her. Electing lowlifes to important positions. So at any rate, so who are some of the people that want home rule? Lawyers, bankers, developers, bureaucrats, government workers, and the political class. Why do the bankers want it? They want it because when a community has home rule, anything the city borrows is like a guaranteed loan because you are on the line to pay it. And so it gives them all this wonderful income and no worries about whether or not they're going to get their loan paid back because you are the one who is going to pay it back. You are responsible. And then I went on to, we were getting close. This was around March. This is a few days before the election. And I decided, you know what we need? We need a home rule tax form. And so I created one. And as you can see here, which is a very simple one, you figure your income and you send it in. That's pretty well what home rule is all about. So the citizens were having some laughs over all of this, but laughter was a very important tool for puncturing these phony, bogus arguments that the politicians are coming up with. And I encourage you to try some of that. Now, this is also a very serious thing for me. Though this is one, some of these were seen by several thousand people. They had, not only would people see them, but then they would share them. And so this was a way that we were able to get our message out throughout the community, even though the media was against us. So this one went out to 1,100 people. But this one I was very serious about because I'm a veteran, and the reason I get involved in home rule, the reason I love constitutional government, and the reason I'm a journalist is because of my devotion to my country and the principles upon which our country is founded. And so I couldn't believe, well, let me see, this is what I wrote, the Veterans Home Rule Reflection. I am awestruck at the prospect of home rule gatherings where gullible followers of the home rule proponents actually celebrate giving up their right to vote on city issues. Brave men and women have died to give us that right. I have seen people in other parts of the world who envy our right to vote. This very hour, brave American men and women are putting their lives on the line to secure that right for us. But in Rockford, our so-called leaders host gatherings to bamboozle citizens into happily surrendering their right to vote on city issues in exchange for a glass of wine and a piece of cheese. So that's the technique that we use this time around to expose who they are and what they are. And I strongly encourage the committee to use that technique because we found that we are overrun with a virtual tsunami of people who benefit directly financially from this flawed Illinois version of so-called home rule. Tonight, Jim asked me to send along to him something. I was challenged by a Rockford journalist when I pointed out that Illinois has the weirdest version of home rule of any state in the Union. Other states either require or allow you to have a local charter or a local constitution by which you control government. The citizens control government. But in Illinois, thanks to Daley and Madigan, we don't have that right.
With the owner of the gray bicycle parked
So Illinois citizens, unfortunately, are reduced to a level of second-class citizenship. I put this up on the screen because through these years of battle, I created this website, several websites, but this one now has essentially virtually everything you want to know about home rule and And Jim mentioned tonight, it has a listing of other states. And this is how I proved to this another journalist, that Illinois has such a strange version of home rule. That's actually listed on there. You can see what other states do and how we're deprived of that. And here's the second part. This, if you scroll down, these are the kinds of things that you'll see. Now in Rockford, our wording was such that if you didn't want home rule, you voted no to keep it out. And so it was a little easier. I just remembered in 1977, I wasn't involved in that campaign, but I remembered in order to get rid of it, you had to vote yes. And that's what you're faced with. You have to get out yes, vote yes to get yourself free again from this kind of a horrendous form of government. And then I have, let's see, oh yeah, okay, I see, oh my, okay. Well, you know what, this may not hurt you. And this is my promise to my wife. This is what happened to me when we repealed home rule. Our business took about a $50,000 or $60,000 hit, and we're a tiny business. We can't afford that. What I'm warning you is that you've got to be prepared. There's a price. Just as the soldiers in the uniform and our first responders pay a price for what they do, when you are a fully active citizen, and I sometimes ask this of some of these public servants, I ask them, how much did it cost you to hold that office? And you won't find any of them saying it cost them anything. On the contrary, they usually have nice, fat bank accounts. And there's a reason for that. It's because the citizens of Illinois are being taken advantage of at the state level and in the home rule communities at the local level. So that's the story. You can fight City Hall, but you have to be determined. You have to talk to each other. And above all, please use the social media. And if you go to that website I mentioned, it's citydesk.us/ well, you've got it on those orange papers, citydesk.us/home rule. Go there and you can get all the ammunition that you need to fight what is truly a very worthwhile battle. So thank you very much again for being here. As I said, you are the hope. You are a symbol of what this nation is all about. Citizens being active and citizens taking control of their government. Thank you.
Mr. Tobin, can we ask you to come over here?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Aye. 1, 2, 3.
Question for, I'm guessing this is for Mr. Guile. Why did your business lose income?
Okay, the question is, why did my business lose income? And the answer is because I can't be in two places at the same time. And as I said, all the people in City Hall were getting paid every day to come up with these bogus things, and then I had to stop my business and prepare defenses against what they were doing. And so I couldn't keep working. My job, I'm an author, I'm a writer, I do design and public relations and work for people. And if I'm fighting City Hall, obviously I can't be doing my primary work. And that's why my wife made me promise never to do that again. And that's why the second time around, we sold a bunch of books to some people, gave them to the Literacy Council, and then I was able to sustain the fight. Third time around, I just made cartoons, for the most part.
Mr. Tobin, where did Leslie Hefez work to earn such a pension?
He's in the State University Retirement System, SURS, S-U-R-S. He was employed at the University of Illinois in Chicago. He retired 2 years ago at the ripe old age of 55. And that one man will get $22 million in pension payout if he lives to be the 85. One guy, and yeah. We're having a meeting in Champaign, by the way, and releasing the state university retirement pensions there.
That information is online.
And that tapers into, what do state pensions have to do with home rule?
Well, quite a bit. I talked about Broadview. The mayor of Broadview did a favor for Madigan and his friends, and the city fathers in Broadview with home rule powers issued over $200 million in bonds that have to be paid off with property taxes. In return, the mayor of Broadview was given a job with the state. He became a state senator, and he still is a state senator. So he has 2 pensions. That's how the system works. You know, you support home rule, you get a pay raise or you get a pension raise at the local level, and if you're really a good tax thief, you'll get another government job in Springfield where they have pensions that are really out of this world, especially with the state university retirement system and teacher retirement system. We have our annual, let's see, it's our 12th annual report on state pensions on our website, taxpayersunited.org. And we've listed all 19,000 of the people in the state retirement funds that have pensions over $100,000 a year. We have them all listed on our website. If you want to see who they are and you don't believe me, there are over 19,000 of them in the 6 statewide pension funds. And that doesn't include local pension funds like, you know, City of Chicago, Police and Fire, Municipal for Chicago. They have additional big pensions there too.
I would like to take a shot at that also, if I may. What does it have to do with home rule? It has everything to do with a mindset. This political class uses your money to build a political machine that keeps them in office and enriches them and enriches their political patrons. And so what this has to be for us is a wake-up call. I love the expression, if it's to be, it's up to me. And that's what this meeting tonight is all about. If you want Illinois to change, if you want to have control over your state, one of the ways we do it is by getting rid of this horrendous misnomer, this crazy thing called home rule. Illinois doesn't really have home rule. It's like Abe Lincoln when he had visitors from Illinois in the White House. And he asked them, how many legs would a dog have if we called a tail a leg? And then his friend said, well, then the dog would have 5 legs. And Lincoln said, no, calling a tail a leg doesn't make it a leg. Calling this crazy system home rule doesn't make it home rule. I like the way Jim Tobin says it. It's home ruin. Take control over your home, your property, your community, your life. And I would ask every citizen in the state of Illinois to do that. And then maybe the legislators will get the message. But right now, your money is just a giant slush fund for politicians. Oh, yes, excuse me.
I've heard all these arguments so much, and I think there's one thing you haven't brought up as far as how it affects home rule effect, and that's the bargaining. What's the difference?
Oh, yeah, under home. Yes, oh, yeah. I knew a very wonderful public servants. There are some, and you got to remember that. Very dedicated public servants who really want to serve the interest of you, the private citizens, not just the special interests. But one of them came to me before this first for our repeal campaign back in 82, 83, and he said, John, we've got to get rid of this. Because he said what happens is the union leaders come to us who are holding office and they say, you either give us what we want, we know that you have unlimited taxing power. So you either give us what we want or we're going to vote you out and we're going to bring in somebody who will. And so it becomes a form of coercion at the local level. It would be a crime if it were done in any way other than the Illinois version of home rule. It probably is a crime.
If home rule is voted down, can current pensions be changed or a cap given, and how is it done?
people do have better control over taxes. And as I point out on the flyer, 80% of their spending is for salaries and pensions. So if you get rid of home rule, they'll have to have a property tax increase referendum to increase the pensions. Your property taxes are paying pensions and salaries for City Hall. That's, over $1 billion of property taxes was raised, actually almost $1 billion last year, was raised to fund pensions for IMRF. IMRF, of course, Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, that source of revenue is property taxes. So if you like higher property taxes, do vote to keep home rule. They won't have to have a referendum to issue debt. They won't have to have a referendum, tax increase referendum to raise your property taxes above state-imposed limits. You see, some things Springfield supports are good for the taxpayers. State-imposed limits on local taxes are good for us. Those of us who and if you get rid of home rule, you'll have state-imposed limits on property taxes here again in Batavia.
And that won't really solve the problem, but at least it'll make the road ahead for those who follow us a little smoother. But as it is right now, we are suffering essentially a form of extortion. We have given them so much power that they hold a gun to your head and they say pay, and what choice do you have? So well, Jim just said leave, but that's happening much too often. I prefer to stay and fight.
I do too, but that's what people are doing. We lead the nation in out-migration 4 years in a row. Now, that's a net loss of 100,000 people. Net loss. Okay?
So fight. Vote yes to get rid of home rule I just lost the thing, so I have to figure out where I am.
Yeah, I know.
The other call I received was from other probably South Illinois.
City council members make $346 a month. How do you consider that lining their pockets?
Well, I don't necessarily consider that lining their pockets, but I do know that at least in Rockford, there's a lot of pocket lining going on. I'm not going to quibble over how much an individual council member should be paid, but I do know that there's a lot of money wasted in the public sector. I have a lawyer friend who was a state's attorney, and he kept saying, "Oh, you got to pay more to get it." You know what? I also know a lot of attorneys who are struggling, and so I'm not sure that we need to be paying at the levels that we're paying. But with respect to what the city council members receive, let the citizens decide that. I'm not going to get into bookkeeping here.
Yeah, I agree. And while I have a chance, I want to mention something I forgot. The city will use your property taxes to hire bureaucrats to come in here to support home rule. They usually get them out of Northern Illinois University. There was this one pointy-headed bureaucrat, Professor Banowitz. I don't know if he's still alive, but wherever I go, here's Professor Banowitz from Northern Illinois University. And so your property taxes are used to hire these guys to come in to support home rule. They claim the meeting is educational, but the guy they have come in from usually NIU, is always in favor of home rule. And so that's how your property taxes will be used here, using home rule taxing powers to hire another bureaucrat from DeKalb to come in here supporting unlimited home rule taxing powers. Paid for by you, and they'll claim it's educational, but it's really a guy who supports home rule. He's playing a trick on you. So.
And the trick sometimes backfires. He's been in Rockford several times. And at one of his visits, he pointed out that the Illinois version of home rule, he thought it was good, is the most wide open form of government anywhere in the United States. And so a little later, I quoted him in a debate, and one of the people who was pro-home rule challenged me. He said, "Who said that? Who ever said something like that?" And I let that go on for about 2 or 3 weeks, where every time, he kept challenging me to come up. And then finally, after he had his neck stuck out far enough, I said, well, it was Dr. Varnum, yeah, the fellow you brought in from DeKalb to fight for your unlimited taxing power. So sometimes it backfires.
The so-called impartial educator.
Oh, yeah, right.
What a quack.
Yeah, but it is.
So the questions we have specifically for you, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. We will address the Batavia questions now, because there are a bunch of questions that have to do specifically with Batavia, which we'll go through now.
I have one question. If we can get rid of this whole rule thing, can they bring it back?
Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Being an American is not a spectator sport. You must be ready to fight all the time. Will they try to bring it back? I can almost guarantee you that they will. It's the nature of the political class, and it's the nature of the people on that little cartoon I had, the bankers, the developers, the lawyers, all these people who benefit by having home rule and unlimited access to your pocketbook. So will it come back if you defeat it? Yes, it will. But defeat it soundly. Talk to your neighbors. Go online. Put things on Facebook. Go to my Facebook cartoons and copy them and paste them up on your own Facebook page. Get the word out. If it's to be, it's up to me. It's up to you. You've got to, and so yeah, you can win the battle, but the war continues. It's just the nature of politicians.
So would it be like every time we have an election, this would come up?
No, my understanding is, I think because we defeated them, they can come back in 2 years. If they had won, then we couldn't come back for 4 years. So there's a,
Of course.
Of course. You've got it.
By the way, they used to come back, we used to be able to come back right away, but we fought them hard in Elmwood Park in 1970s, and the General Assembly actually passed a law restricting their power in that regard to what he just described. But they used to just be able to do it 6 months later. It's better than it was because we beat them.
And the City of Batavia on their website for their information on home rule. They do have an NIU article by Curtis Wood from the Center for Government Studies. And the editor of this publication is James Benovitz.
Yep.
Someone told us, we called his secretary. Actually, it was a young lady who called his secretary and asked if he supports home rule. She's, well, yes, he does. And how much does he charge? $500. So that was, 10 or 20 years ago. Who knows what he's charging your property taxes for these days when his friends come over to support home rule.
That's why I like to ask these people, well, you're taking a stand. How much is it costing you? And yeah, right. And so, again, public service involves sacrifice. Our soldiers today aren't with us right now, those who are deployed, because they are making a sacrifice for us. And that's what being an American citizen is all about. We make sacrifices so that we not only benefit, but others benefit. One of my favorite lines in Scripture is, do nothing out of selfishness or vainglory, but rather everyone regard everyone else as more important than yourself. So each is looking out not only for his or her own interest, but also for everyone else. That's a healthy community. That's what America is at its healthiest, when we're looking out for each other. And so that's, I guess that's the difference, Jim. We don't, Benovitz is on the payroll.
And this article I have read before, and so I wanted to point out this one section that I found very entertaining. The belief that municipal officials cannot be trusted to serve the public interest has its roots in the era of municipal corruption, which spanned the last decades of the 19th century and the early decades of the 20th century. Like it stopped, right? Okay, and then it continues on. Despite the fact that the progressive reform movement eradicated most municipal corruption, particularly in governments employing professional city and county managers, popular support still persists for constraining municipal government powers.
This is the time
I have to talk about Bacon's Rebellion. That's what taxpayers used to do when City Hall got out of hand. They would start a tax strike, a tax revolt. I had the privilege of visiting Bacon's Castle in Northern Virginia about a half a year back. And Bacon, we used to have all kinds of tax revolts in this country, even before 1776. American is apple pie to fight taxes. I mean, Bacon's Rebellion was in 1676, 100 years before the American Revolution. And what did they do? It was a tax revolt and more than that. One of the things the taxpayers did in 1676 is burn down the state capitol. That was, the state capitol in those days was, I forget the name of it, Jamestown. So they moved the state capitol to Williamsburg then to be safe from Bacon's rebels. But that's the kind of thing, that's the sort of thing taxpayers used to do to keep the politicians in line. Well, we know about the American Revolution too, don't we? That started in the 1760s, but it sort of ended in 1776 was the Declaration, and that tax war ended in 1783. So this is nothing compared to what those people, the taxpayers, used to do to fight for their liberty. We're lucky we've got this much freedom. Don't lose it.
And it brings back the concept of checks and balances. I would say things probably are better today. I know they are in other states where they have constraints, constitutional constraints on their versions of home rule. But you don't have to look very far to find more evidence of this ongoing thing called corruption. And I'm not accusing not every politician is corrupt. We have some good people in public service. One of them came to me and said, "John, we got to get rid of home rule because it's essentially extortion." So the only checks and balances are important, but you are the ultimate check and balance against abuses by government. Thank you again for being here tonight.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being